V10, V11, V12, V13 as a guy is child's play. And I can hang double body weight on the Beastmaker 2000 lower edges. He's been climbing for 2.5 years. What is this hangboard routine? Well, that's what everyone needs to hear but doesn't want to do. Yeah, I was never a huge Reddit guy, but unfortunately there's a lot of good info on that website. A lot of thoughts from strong people.
What felt like cheating to you? Gripping technique. I remember the first time I ever didn't just hold a crimp, but actively pulled harder on it with my fingertips. Being able to be very precise with placement and active with directional pulling with individual fingers is game-changing, and something I see very, very few people doing. 90% of my beta comes down to finding the correct gripping technique for a boulder.
I think we can break this into 3 dimensions: wrist placement, finger placement, and directionality of pull. For wrist placement, the most common example that even beginners are familiar with is the wrist flip. You probably flipped a pinched into an undercling or a Gaston into a side pull. On slab, you often need to align your wrist with the handhold to get good purchase. Maybe this seems obvious, but I think finger placement can get a little more tricky. We could start with the basic advanced tips. Do you pull the slack out of your skin and actively flex your dip joints, as in an overcoming isometric, on small holds? Do you know that the full crimp is the correct grip? Or is it possible the fabled claw grip, where you're almost scratching the wall, works better for the position? Finger placement matters because you can transform a heinous side pull into a decent pinch, or just get more surface area onto a hold by stacking your fingers unintuitively. I think directionality of pull is really complicated. Generally, we say people should pull through the holds or perpendicular to the holds, but you might have to apply another vector to get the most out of a foothold or to encourage an opposition. People have tried making physics diagram explanations for efficient climbing movement, and I think that's fine when we're talking about big holds, but I'm not sure it's so straightforward for very small holds where the directionality is subtle. So maybe you know all of this. But Hamish MacArthur said he didn't think about active dip flexion until last year. Conversely, there are many amateurs who try to just grip the shit out of the holds and end up learning dip flexion or other gripping methods very early on. Most YouTube videos are about precise footwork and foot placement, which is important, but most finger videos are about finger strength rather than handwork or hand placement. That's something to think about. So thanks, freak in a magnum. What? Stop climbing like I'm not in my butt. Stop climbing like I'm 5'4". Time and time again, I get talked down to because I'm tall about my climbing. Climbing with too much technique became a detriment, and I noticed it when I climbed with other tall people. They kept skipping holds and sometimes just muscle ups with 1 point of contact because it would save them time 1-2 moves. So I stopped listening to my shorter friends and started exploring my own style of climbing. Okay, I think I know what he's trying to say, but I don't like the way he phrased it. You don't need to bust out figure 4s and heel-toe cams on the indoor ladders. I would even say that it's poor technique to be doing that here. And key point, moving dynamically or without feet doesn't necessarily mean you're using poor technique. That cannot be understated, because how you implicitly define good technique affects how you learn to climb, but that's a separate video. Any performance quantum leap. When I bought my van, first time I quit my job to go climbing for months, building a wall in my garage. The big things many people can't assume they can't do for one reason or another. For one reason or another, people are assuming they can't quit their job to go climbing. Concerning. There's a lot of general and repeated advice here. I tabulated the most common answers. Any of these topics could be videos by themselves, but you'll notice that strength training comes out on top here. Okay, I know why you guys are still here. You want this double bodyweight hang on 15 millimeters. New climbers are always 10 times stronger for some reason. This is his split. Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday, he does limit bouldering and hangboarding. He's asking, if I move the hangboarding from Tuesday to Wednesday, will he end up overtraining by not having a rest day, even though the weekly volume is constant? That's actually a good question. Can you overtrain ligaments and tendons by not leaving enough consecutive rest days, even if the total training load is constant? To which Assbender58 replies, I'm speculating the answer is almost certainly yes. The alternative is that ligaments and tendons do not fatigue or overtrain after shuffling a given volume over some time period. Imagine going the other way, taking 4 2-hour hard bouldering sessions in a week versus 1 8-hour hard bouldering session once a week. The latter is almost guaranteed to result in injury. This is probably right. Exercise scientists seem to believe that tendons have a slower tissue renewal rate compared with muscles. This is a paper on consecutive high-strain cyclic loading of the Achilles tendon. They had people flex their toe forwards for a bunch of sets 8 days in a row, and then they measured the maximum voluntary contraction and the amount of collagen synthesis. From the abstract, accordingly, we suggest that tendon is vulnerable to frequent high-magnitude cyclic mechanical loading as accumulation of microdamage can potentially exceed the rate of biological repair, leading to increased maximal tendon strain. Some people like research papers. Some people really don't. I think the general wisdom is that tendons take a little longer to recover than muscles do, and that the recovery discrepancy is related to the session intensity.
I would bet that at low intensities, the tendon and muscle recovery times are similar, but as you increase the intensity and volume of your exercise, the tendon recovery times diverge non-linearly for the majority of the athlete population. I have nothing to base that off of, I'm just guessing. By the way, this is the greatest journal cover ever. Seals. They're so cute. I wonder what they taste like.
But you want his hangboard routine. What works best for me is longer hangs, aiming at 4 to 6 sets of 40-second hangs with 8+ minutes of rest between sets, trying to be close to failure at the end of the 40 seconds. Usually that would be with an added 16 to 20 kilos. And he was like 65 kilos, so that's roughly plus 30% body weight. Bro, I'm not trying to do a weighted hang for 40 seconds. What the hell is that? One of you people should, though. Someone please try this and sacrifice your hands for science. His very next post was about his pulley inflammation. This is from an Ask Me Anything Drew Ruwana thread. What is the biggest mistake climbers in the V8 to V10 range make? If someone doesn't have access to great gym setting or good spray walls, but has a home spray wall or access to commercial boards, how would you advise them to train to get more dimensionality? The biggest mistake I see V8 to 10 climbers make isn't as much of a mistake, but rather a paradigm shift. This relative grade range is around where most climbers hit a long-term plateau, and it can be harder to get out of it. Moves get harder, holds get smaller, and climbs start getting uncomfortable. It seems to be the climbers that seek out uncomfortable, challenging, anti-style, or whatever you name it, have an easier time progressing, since by nature, those types of climbs are challenging a skill you maybe haven't developed yet or aren't as confident on. For all levels, seek out stuff that challenges you because it'll make you better than stuff you're comfortable on.
Immediately, I think of a few things. Compy versus outdoorsy boulders. You know, not every strong outdoor climber can do the indoor compy stuff, but most of the ex-team kids who can do the paddle dynos and the compy moves tend to be pretty good at outdoor climbing. You might say there's no carryover between compy stuff and tight crimp lines, but I wonder. It's the same story with slab too. I know V10, V11 board climbers who refuse to touch slab, or will fall on an indoor V4 or V3 slab and then frustratedly walk away. And you can say there's no carryover between slab and steep climbing, but I wonder. And if your concern is that certain boulders are injury prone and the setting at your gym is very poor and you can't mitigate the risk, fine. But if you're an outdoor climber, dude, you have a gym floor. Like, you could learn to bail safely if you wanted to. And I know it's annoying hearing this. Like, I know that everyone always says work on your weaknesses, but you want to use your time efficiently also, right? You want to progress through the grades as quickly as possible because you started climbing X years or X months ago and your progression is pretty good, but not as good as that one guy on the internet, and you need a strong finger stimulus, which is why we're board climbing instead of doing those crappy new school gym sets. But again, I wonder. And speaking of maximizing progress,
everybody, relax. If you've never trained before, or even if you've trained for a few years, it doesn't matter what you do. It will all work. If you've essentially done nothing, just doing something will make you better. Don't get caught up in the minutia of sets, reps, volume, periodization, etc. Focus on the general principles. Be consistent. Don't jump on every new workout you see on Instagram. The reality is you are not a professional athlete. You don't get to eat, sleep, and drink your training. You will always have to compromise. The amount of return you will see from trying to implement the training protocols at the extreme end of the spectrum are essentially non-existent. You will get far more out of the simple things. Climb hard some days, climb easy other days. Focus on your technique, train basic body movements a couple times a week, stretch, hangboard every so often, rest when you're tired. Stop trying to force yourself to climb V10 in 6 months. It takes years and years to learn how to climb well. 3 months? Are you kidding me? That's not a plateau. Welcome to climbing. Stop rushing it. Everybody, relax. You probably want to improve at climbing. And by now, you've likely surmised that this channel is a way for me to voice my bad opinions on things athlete related. Whether the brain truly is the most important muscle while climbing, or if this is just a bullshit finger sport. That's a question I'm trying to answer, and selfishly, I believe formatting my thoughts like this will accelerate my progress. And quantitative metric progression is not equivalent to sport mastery. Good reminder, Will. There are so many other good retrospectives here, but I already feel like those banned YouTube shorts that used to read fake Reddit stories while Temple Run played on a split screen. So let's finish strong. Be consistent. Be patient. Be mindful of every attempt. Think on long timescales. Don't think in overly regimented, short cycle marketing sounding protocols. List a bunch of numbers or acronyms. Don't get injured. That should really be the very first thing. Keep it fun, love the process. I've told my story numerous times here. Started low 30s, reached V10 plus on rock in 5-ish years. Essentially 0 off-wall, 0 cycle period based training. Went to the gym every other day with no excuses for rain, bad weather, low motivation, etc. as recovery allowed. Meaning extra rest days without any sense of guilt every single time it was needed. Backed off on tweaky moves or boulders every single time. I mean that. For years without letting my ego push me to get hurt. No exceptions. I stopped my session once I got a little past peak, so I never dug a huge recovery hole. I made it a central part of my progress, as important as climbing itself, to eat well, sleep as consistently as I could, and lead a low-stress lifestyle. I spent as many weekends as I could on rock, sacrificing gym days and partying non-bouldering social aspects, dated climbers, and designed nearly all my holidays around climbing with few exceptions. Even if I don't like that style, I spend more time thinking, analyzing, considering than actually climbing. I know I'll never be elite. V10, V11, V12, V13 as a guy is child's play. V14 is like local hero, nobody else knows your name. 1 or 2 15s is pro-amateur, consistent 15 is sponsored and could be pro. The business is at 16 and trying to downgrade V17. I know these people, I know I am not those people, but it's fun to climb with them and be in awe of them. I won't read the rest of this in detail, but look at this comment here. Wow, dude. Reads like an autobiography. That's because most people who ask, how do I become X climber, think the answer is, do this routine, try hard at the gym, and have good genetics. And the real answer is, align your life so that your autobiography gives you the best chance to keep progressing long enough without injuries or interruptions so that you can become X athlete. With every second we spend, we are writing our autobiographies. I bet that some of you want to try the hardest boulders in the world. There are many hefty goals I am striving for in this life, and I don't remember when a few hard lines entered that list. I was even debating making this video at all because I don't have a V12 in 12 months story or whatever. And with the weird state of technology and jobs, I was even losing the stoke for a while. But who cares about all that? Life is way more fun when you're obsessed with something.